My name is Elias Crowe and this is the season finale of my story. The second phone felt heavier than it should have, though it was just plastic and circuits. I held it in my coat pocket while driving, idly watching the rain streak across the windshield. Every streetlight seemed calculated, every pedestrian a potential observer. I wondered how long I could remain unnoticed in my own neighborhood. My pulse never slowed even when I parked 3 blocks from the house. I turned the phone on. No password. No warnings. Just folders labeled, plans, contingencies, versions. Each one meticulously organized. Plans for what to do if I ate, didn't eat, suspected the truth, or survived. Versions of me labeled neatly, cooperative, distressed, violent, dead. Only one version walked free. None of them were innocent. I stared at the phone, understanding for the first time the full scope of what she'd been preparing. She hadn't simply planned to kill me, she'd prepared the narrative, the evidence, the fallout. Drawers left half open, floorboards loose, a receipt taped under the sink from a store I'd never been to. These weren't mistakes. They were contingencies. Evidence waiting for the right story. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're behind. That makes men sloppy. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I followed the backup plan, just not the way she intended. I called her lawyer first. Then the police. Then I handed over the second phone, letting the evidence speak for itself. I didn't accuse. I didn't defend. I just made sure that the narrative I was trapped in now included truth. That night, sitting in the quiet of the house, I realized something important. The trap wasn't the meal, the poison, or even the staged home. The trap was timing. Fear isn't just about what happens. It's about when it happens, how it lands, and how you react. I'd survived the bait. Now I had to survive what came after. For the first time, I understood it fully. She never wanted to kill me. She wanted to control the story after she tried. Glass separated us, thick enough to distort her face. She looked smaller than I remembered, folded inward, fragile, the kind of person who's been bracing for impact for years. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the phone, her eyes avoiding mine at first. That hurt more than any accusation could. What did you tell them? She asked finally. The truth. All of it. She laughed, sharp and defensive. You never knew what that was. I slid the second phone toward the glass. Recognition, not shock, flashed across her features. You weren't supposed to find that, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to come home, I replied. Silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Then she leaned closer, voice dropping to a near hiss. He said you'd hurt me eventually. Did I? I asked. She didn't answer. He said men like you always do, she whispered. It's just a matter of time. And you believed him. I trusted him. That was the difference. She didn't love the man who had orchestrated the fear. She believed him. He had reframed our arguments, our silences, and our moments of doubt into proof that danger was always present. He didn't create terror, he validated it, patiently, methodically. Is he in custody? She asked. No, I said. Relief crossed her face for a fraction of a second, enough to tell me she knew he had underestimated me. When the guard ended the visit, she pressed her palm to the glass, voice soft, almost a warning. You think this ends with me? It doesn't. He plans for people like you. I met her eyes steadily. So do I. We met at noon in a hotel lobby, sunlight streaming through the large windows. He didn't shake my hand. Instead, he introduced himself calmly. Elias Crowe, he said. I help people survive dangerous situations. You mean you teach them to manufacture one? I replied, watching his reaction carefully. He smiled, amused. Fear exists already. I just give it structure. I noted his posture, his composure. He wasn't worried about the phone. Not even about surveillance. He sat like a man used to being the smartest person in the room. I never told her to kill you, Elias said smoothly. I taught her how to survive you. You taught her how to poison me. I taught her options, he corrected. Emotion makes people sloppy. I guided her. That's all. I slid the phone across the table. He didn't flinch. Only a slight thinning of the smile betrayed him. You're adaptable, he said, voice calm. That's rare. So is arrogance, I replied, letting my own calm sharpen. He stood, leaning slightly forward. This doesn't end because you want justice. It ends when you stop needing to be right. I watched him leave. And then, almost immediately, badges appeared. The lesson was over. Elias didn't resist. Not when the officers cuffed him. Not when they read him his rights. He simply looked at me, a faint, knowing smile curling on his lips, like a teacher watching a student finally understand the lesson. "Remember what I said?" he murmured as they led him past me. "Stories outlive facts." The words echoed in my chest. I realized he didn't see us as enemies. We were participants, chess pieces in his design, moving according to invisible rules we barely understood. The fallout was quieter than I expected. Other women came forward, sharing experiences that mirrored mine. Other husbands, some alive, some barely surviving, had been caught in different variations of his orchestrations. The careful patience, the slow manipulation, the constant validation of fear. It was a pattern he perfected over decades. He left behind breadcrumbs everywhere, not just for me or my wife, but for a system of his own creation, one that could ensnare anyone unwary. My wife took a plea deal. She didn't speak to me, didn't acknowledge me beyond the glass. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. She simply became a piece of evidence in the trial that would decide the rest of his work. I moved into a temporary place. White walls, minimal furniture, nothing that carried memory. I still checked the locks twice every night. Fear doesn't leave. It waits, silent, patient. It waits for the unguarded moment. One night my phone buzzed. Different number. Unknown. He taught me to. I didn't respond. I powered the device off completely. Some lessons I realized weren't meant to be continued. Some ghosts are better left in the past, as cold and distant as the winter stars outside my window. Courtrooms have a peculiar kind of tension, the type that seeps into your skin. The jury listened as I spoke, deliberate, calm. They called me a victim. I hated that word. Victims are static. I wasn't. I had adapted, survived, and learned. I didn't need their sympathy. I needed acknowledgement of what actually happened. I described the silence, the rehearsed smiles, the way her hands trembled when she served me dinner. I described the emails, the drafts, the plans for my death that had been so carefully catalogued. I told them how love can be weaponized, how fear can be a story told over years. They didn't look away. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the courtroom exhaled collectively. My wife was sentenced last. She asked to speak. "I loved him," she said, pointing at me. "Until I was taught not to." It wasn't an apology. It was an explanation. And explanations, I realized, don't heal anything. They only clarify why people do the things they do. I sold the house. Gave away the plates. Burned the letters. I kept nothing except the memory of what I had survived. People asked me if I would ever trust again. I didn't answer. Trust isn't a switch. It's a muscle, and mine had been ripped apart and sewn back together, unevenly. Even now, months later, I felt the pull of paranoia, the faint suspicion that someone was watching. I reminded myself that survival doesn't erase caution. It merely sharpens it. Some evenings, I'd stare out of the window, the silence outside a constant companion, and wonder if the lessons Elias taught my wife would ripple elsewhere, in ways I'd never know. Months after the trial, I returned to what could be called a home for the first time. Different place, different walls, different light. I came home early just as I had before. But now there was no trap waiting. No staged dinner, no hidden cameras, no poisoned plates. Just quiet. And for the first time since the nightmare began, the silence felt honest. It was not rehearsed. It didn't demand anything from me. No fear. No anticipation. Only peace. I didn't take it for granted. I walked through each room slowly, noting every sound, every shadow. This time I wasn't listening for a threat. I was listening to life. It was an unfamiliar feeling. Fragile. Precious. And I held on to it carefully. I still cook my favorite dish. I still taste carefully. Not because I fear poison or manipulation, but because I respect the closeness of endings. Some people survive poison. Some survive betrayal. Some survive both and emerge cautious, quiet, and aware of every subtle signal life throws their way. I survived both. I survived the lessons, the lies, the careful orchestration of fear. And now, when I walk into a room, I pause. I notice. I observe. I never come home unannounced anymore, not out of fear but out of respect. For the past, for the fragility of trust, and for the survival that still courses through me. I survived. And that, in itself, is enough.